On the road to Macstock with Brittany Smith. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Collective, an all-in-one financial solution for the self-employed. Learn more at collective.com. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we are on the road to Macstock. Macstock in Woodstock, Illinois, coming up at the end of July. We're talking to the presenters and some of the folks that are going to be there. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. We hope you will join us by going to macstockconferenceandexpo.com. right down there, and check it out and join us. We're going to have a lot of fun. This time, we get to talk to Brittany Smith, who will be presenting. Brittany, welcome. It's great to see you as always, and I'm really excited to have you as a speaker at Macstock.
Hey, thanks for having me. I am so excited. I have never been in person.
You said that, and I couldn't believe that. I would have sworn that you had attended at one point, but this is your very first Macstock, and you're a speaker to boot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was there for 2020, which was the virtual one. But yeah, this is the first one since then, and yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It'll be so good to see you in person. That's the first thing, but I'm also excited because I've seen you speak on plenty of your videos. I've seen, of course, we've had plenty of discussions on MacVoices Live. You've even been a guest here on the regular kind of MacVoices show, but this will be my first time seeing you live and in person.
MacVoices classic. So yeah, you won't have seen me speak in person, but you're actually one of the few people on the panel I've met in person, it's not a lot of folks. I've never met Jeff Gamet in person. Most people on the panel I haven't met in person yet. So this is going to be really exciting.
Oh, well, that's great. They're all kind of facets to this, and you're right. I tend to forget because well, no, that's not quite true. There are a couple of folks I haven't met in person either on MacVoices Live. So we're going to get a lot of them. Though a lot of that list is going to get shorter when it comes to Macstock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So. Folks may know you from all the videos you do on your YouTube channel, but what topic or topics did you pick for Macstock?
So I want to talk about ways that, you could call it not working as efficiently, but ways that we tend to work harder and finding smarter ways to work instead. So how can we outsmart ourselves a little bit? What are some places that people get stuck a lot? Some of this comes from my background in cognitive neuroscience. Some of it comes from working with folks who inadvertently do things the hard way a lot, and just everything in between, from doing productivity coaching. And then the cool thing is when I give this talk at Macstock that I can't do when I talk about the similar things other places is we can get really nerdy with it. We can dive into shortcuts. We can dive into Keyboard Maestro. And I know I won't completely lose and overwhelm people. So that's pretty fun, is that we get to do more of the geeky side that I don't always get to do when I'm speaking in person.
So you answered the first question I had for you. Is this going to be utility-based, software utility-based, or is this going to be more learning how to think about how we work?
First one, then the other.
Okay.
Let's talk about some things that go wrong. Hopefully give some people some ideas about not going wrong, but where are we putting in too much energy and not working? We're putting in too much energy in the wrong spot for how much of a result we're seeing. And so a little exercise on what we spend our time on, but then we can get geeky with it. And my favorite thing in the whole world is shortcuts. I don't have to tell you that. But it is a really cool tool, because one of the places we can get in trouble is when we're using our cognition inefficiently. We think about time saving a lot, But I will be just delighted if I can get the entirety of the Apple nerd community to start thinking about mental energy instead of just time as the most precious resource. Because if I have to remember, can't do that till I get back to my computer, that is not as efficient, for an example, as, I can do it on my phone because shortcuts. That's one of the places that shortcuts comes in particular, or any tool that, like, something to think about. Is this something I can only do on my Mac? Is that causing me problems? Do I forget to do it? Just as one example, it's one of the places that we can get mixed up, and one of the places we can select different tools to use our mental energy more efficiently.
The term mental energy is really interesting to me because I think I can relate to that an awful lot. Just because, we were talking pre-show about an idea that we had, and that we were in a situation where you couldn't act on it, and then by the time you could act on it, you'd forgotten it. And so that kind of thing, that I like the mental energy concept a lot. Yeah.
And how do we think about that so that it doesn't cause us extra problems? One of the places automation can be helpful is in not having to make the same decision over and over again, whether it's using an actual automation tool or something like a checklist. Like my collaborator for the ADHD Guild and I, when something comes up, like let's say a payment doesn't go through, we have a set of steps. We only wanted to decide it once. What's our policy if a payment doesn't go through? And then how do we know when we're done? Because sometimes payment doesn't go through. You have a membership program too. And you don't ever hear from them again. And sometimes it's an accident. And then they're like, oh crap, how do I get back on your membership thing? And so by deciding that in advance, then we're able to only have to make the decision once and just refer to it over and over again. And so that's one way to be more efficient. It's a type of automation, but it's not like I got out my coding tools and did my automating.
Okay. Go explain that just for a second. When you say a checklist, do you consider a checklist an automation tool?
It is in terms of decision making. Now, sometimes I use checklists. Sometimes a lot of my checklists personally, they live in Shortcuts or in Keyboard Maestro. But just having a checklist, like this is my policy. I don't have to decide it again. This is the email text I send to somebody, whether it lives in Keyboard Maestro or Shortcuts as a template, or whether or not I copy and paste it, it's still a thing I didn't have to do more than once.
Okay. So maybe I need to have you define checklist, because I don't think of it. I think of a checklist as the list I take to the grocery store. I got eggs, butter, milk, bread, hamburgers, and so that's my version of a checklist. Now I have my own set of checklists for different things, that I do related to MacVoices, but
posting podcasts and things like that. But you only had to make that decision once.
Okay. So
let's say you have a checklist. I don't know how you actually do it, but let's say you had your checklist. You know what? Guess what? It's holiday season and we're going to do our gift guide. I bet you have a checklist for that.
I do, but I'm I guess what I'm intrigued by the concept you're talking about here is having it live inside Shortcuts or Keyboard Maestro.
Okay, that's the. And I try to talk about both when I'm talking about more general audiences, but you're right. For Macstock, we're going to be leaning more towards the Keyboard Maestro or Shortcuts. I'll give you a great Shortcuts one. Every time I have a consultation for somebody who's interested in coaching, I have a series of steps I do afterwards. I could refer to a checklist and then manually do all those steps. Or I could program Shortcuts to walk me through the steps. It came out of a checklist, but I don't have to look at a checklist ever. Shortcuts is just going to tell me the next thing to do. And at the correct moment, it's going to hit send on that follow-up email.
So your shortcut pops up and says, okay, so it's day one after my consultation, and an email needs to be sent, and Shortcuts does that for you. But how about if it's a non-shortcuttable thing? Does it just pop you up?
What is non-shortcuttable? I'm just
oh boy, I'm not even. I'm not. I guess I'm. Well, okay. I'll go to the example you just said for me. I go through a process of posting MacVoices. I upload to A, I upload to B, I upload to C, I upload to D, I post to E, F, and G, and go from there. Now, a shortcut can't post for me. Okay.
No.
And so that's where I'm asking. For example, I promote MacVoices on LinkedIn. Okay, through my LinkedIn profile. So I need to remember. But each episode obviously is different. I have to post a description. I have to post a completely different web link for each show. So and I don't feed those in. I mean, to my way of thinking, it'd be counterproductive to feed those things into shortcuts, because it just would add another step as opposed to having them queued up in a clipboard manager and pasting them from there.
Yeah, a clipboard manager is totally a way to do that. Now, in my case, so this is a task you're never going to do on your phone, right? You're never going to post your episode on a phone.
Probably not, no.
So we're already talking about a thing that can exclusively be done on a Mac. So all of a sudden, your options are wider. You could, for example, use Keyboard Maestro, which is also my clipboard manager, by the way, and and you could use Keyboard Maestro. Can it do all the things for you? If you want to spend enough time, and this is a great example because for like the YouTube videos that I put up, I use a Keyboard Maestro checklist. So instead of a checkbox, like I said, a prompt comes up. So it may open up, it's going to open up the YouTube backend, and it's going to, I'll do a couple things like have it click on the thing to post a new video. And then it's going to prompt me. So that's the next item on the checklist, is it says, drag in the video into YouTube. Great. So I'm going to do that. And then, the things that the Keyboard Maestro can do automatically, great. It's going to do those easily. I know it can do a lot more, but I go for the 80-20 principle when it comes to automation personally, which is it going to be way more difficult than it's worth to have it to go the rest of the way? Okay, we're going to leave that 20%. I'll do it manually. I'm just going to have the thing prompt me with the next item. It's a different way of thinking of a checklist, because it goes, okay, now we're going to add this thing in. Oh, did you also want to make a blog post about that? Okay, great. We're going to open up that page, and the text is already loaded for you. If I use the same text in my description pretty much as I would in a blog post. And so it's going to paste in, it'll load up the right thing. It'll load up the title when it's time to paste that in. It'll load in the text when it's time to paste that in. It's one way to do it. It's not the way for everyone to do it, but it's a way to do it.
So in this example, since we're going with it, let's just go with it. So when you get
just go down the weeds.
Yeah, when you get that prompt to do something manually, then does your checklist shortcut require you to finish that? I mean, well, I guess it can't put a gun to your head, but are you not allowed to move on until you acknowledge and say, yes, I've done that, even whether you have or not, it's irrelevant. But is that a case of, okay, step 3, I can't go to step 4 until I tell it I've completed step 3?
It depends. So I think a better example now would be to use the Keyboard Maestro ones, since we're kind of talking about posting posts of various kinds. Right. So I have a very long, I have to make sure it doesn't time out the prompt. So I can pause if I need to. And the nice thing about Keyboard Maestro is you can keep doing something else. Just leave that little prompt up in the corner. But because I know I'm not going to always do it all in one go, a lot of times I will have... that I've also automated OmniFocus tasks. And they have the link to launch the Keyboard Maestro macro. I use URL schemes mixed with tasks and calendar items all the time. I'm a crazy URL scheme person. You thought they were dead. Turns out they're not. I'm still the person using them all the time, every day.
Okay. Oh, this is going for an hour. I love it.
I pulled this down the weeds. I'm probably not even going to go in this much detail.
Well, no, but listen, I think it's a great example so folks can understand what they're going to be seeing with what you're doing, because the general description gets a little bit, it's like, well, how I'm already doing a lot of this stuff. No, you're not the way Brittany does it. And I'm intrigued by it simply because I've gone through so many courses, I've read so many things, I've tried different things, and inevitably I hit just what you said when we started out. I do a cost-benefit analysis on it, a mental cost-benefit analysis, and say the time it takes me to set this up is not worth it. Now, there are things like Text Expander that are absolutely worth it, that because A, it's easy, and B, it's something I do absolutely repetitively. So, but I struggle sometimes with some of the more advanced things that I think you're going to be addressing. That's why I'm so excited to hear it from you and the way you do it, because maybe it sounds like I might be able to take some of that and actually get some use out of it at a cost-benefit ratio that's acceptable to me.
And what's always going to matter is what's your goal. So what I wanted was for my posting tasks to be brainless tasks, to not require my brain as much as possible, so that, let's say I'm in a board meeting and what they're talking about is not something I can contribute to, but I need to be aware for when the next topic comes up. Just for pretend, let's pretend like that's a situation I might find myself in. I needed this process to be mindless because I don't spend a ton of time at my Mac, but that's something that can only happen on my Mac. And I needed to know exactly where I left off. And so that's what I needed. So it was worth the setup to me. But there are places where it's like, I know for a fact, and I'm thinking of Jay this whole time, by the way. I know for a fact Jay could come in and automate these things that I say can't automate. And I believe 100% that that's a thing Jay could do. However, I'm not going to spend the extra time on it, especially because I'm not a coder, on it to do that when I can just give myself an instruction that says drag and drop the video up. And so for me, that's sort of where's the most benefit for the minimum amount of setup is. If you're good with giving half your, because I always felt like posting was this thing that required like half my attention, which for me personally is the exact wrong amount. You can take all of it or very little of it. In the middle does not work well for me at all. So I wanted to take this thing that was sort of a mind-numbing thing and make it so, no, I can completely follow this other conversation that's happening so I can chime in and just do this mindless task, because now it has become a mindless task. I don't have to remember what's next. I don't have to remember where I left off. I don't have to remember to go over and look at the checklist, right? It's all in Keyboard Maestro. And it handles as much of it as I can have it handle easily. And that threshold's going to be a little bit different for everybody.
Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Collective at collective.com. Are you a freelancer or a solo small business owner tired of dealing with the overwhelming paperwork, accounting, and taxes? Look no further. Introducing Collective.com, the all-in-one financial solution for freelancers, contractors, and self-employed entrepreneurs. Whether you're a consultant, software developer, coach, photographer, content creator, or graphic designer, Collective has got you covered. They handle everything from corporate formation and compliance paperwork to taxes, bookkeeping, accounting, and even payroll. With the perfect blend of technology and human experts, Collective helps you maximize your tax savings while eliminating your busy work. Imagine having all those services at a fraction of the cost of hiring multiple professionals. Act now and save thousands of dollars on taxes in 2023 by taking advantage of their backdated S Corp Election offer available until June 30th. On average, Collective members save $10,000 per year on taxes with this structure. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Visit collective.com to save on taxes this year and let the experts handle your setup, accounting, bookkeeping, and taxes, including your personal taxes. That's collective.com, your solution for financial peace of mind. Thanks to Collective for supporting this week's MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Kolide at kolide.com/MacVoices. Clicking on the wrong link can cause you plenty of headaches if it's just you. But if it's your company, the possibility of clicking a wrong link is multiplied by the number of users, right along with the headaches. Your users don't mean to create a problem, but they have other things on their priority list. That's why Kolide works so well for Okta users. You can get your entire fleet to 100% compliance. If a device isn't compliant and tries to log in, it can't. The user is provided with the information on what needs to be done. If they do it, great. If not, they're blocked. Immediate, helpful device compliance that secures your company. Without Kolide, there's nothing to stop an unsecure device. With Kolide, unsecure devices don't have a chance to cause issues. And this is all built to work seamlessly with Okta. Zero trust architecture and 100% device compliance. That means fewer support tickets and less frustration all around. Just what the doctor ordered. Visit kolide.com/MacVoices to learn more or book a demo. That's Kolide, KOLIDE.com/MacVoices. Kolide.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Kolide for supporting MacVoices. Okay, this has nothing to do with Macstock, but I want to do it anyway. Just
Why
because
not?
of what you said. Yeah.
It's your show.
Well, it's my show, but but I'm curious, based on what you just said about yourself, that I find that really interesting that you know that about yourself. Are you a believer in multitasking?
It depends on the situation. Are you combining the right amount of mindless and mind using, right? Like, if you're trying to do two mentally complicated things at once, no. You're just causing yourself a lot of energy drain from task switching, because that's really what you're doing is task switching. But if I try to just clean a room and not listen to anything, like not put on a podcast, not put on an audiobook, which is a form of multitasking, my brain's going to overcomplicate everything and overthink everything, and I'm going to get hardly any progress done. But if I put on a nice audiobook that takes up the part of my brain that's overthinking, and now I can just pick up all the clothes that I've left lying all over the place, it's great. You know, like doing dishes, those kinds of things. If you count that as multitasking, that works. Does it work for everybody? No.
Not only are you explaining multitasking, apparently you're also psychic, because that's exactly the scenario I had over the weekend, where I had a cleaning up, cleaning out kind of project to do. And so I put it on an audiobook, and it made the task so much easier, because I felt like, yes, my brain was occupied with something I wanted to do, I wanted to get to, and hadn't, and yet I was also accomplishing the physical task in front of me. So that's, and maybe that's part of the answer, is part of it needs to be physical, part of it needs to be mental.
Yeah. And not something high stakes, right? When I have a coaching session over the phone, theoretically, I could also clean. But that requires more of my brain than just passively listening. And so really the most complicated thing I can ever do is fold socks. There's no decision making. You're just lining them up and do it, But mostly I can't do other tasks while I'm coaching on the phone, because too much of my brain is being used to help the person I'm working with. Whereas, I can talk to my pal Derek, who's been on your show once before. And we were teenagers in the 90s. We can talk on the phone indefinitely. And so
that's teenagers, any generation, Brett.
I don't think they talk on the phone anymore.
Well,
which is weird, because they don't even have to share a line like we did. It's weird. Yeah, so, maybe they just FaceTime. Who knows? But I can do that. But I don't like to FaceTime and do stuff, because then I can't clean, and I feel stuck. Anyway, so I can go on a great cleaning spree, but that's because it's not the same level of discord. We're just chit-chatting. I don't have to put thought into it. And so just noticing what of those different things and how did they take up space in your brain. I can study with music on, but a musician can't. Or many musicians can't, because that takes up too much of their brain. It's too potentially distracting. I can't read a note to save my life. I can listen to music in the background and study without a problem. That's a generalization. There's always exceptions, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't take up space in my brain. It's just there. It's just sound.
That's a really great example, I think. I mean, I'll have to ask a musician. But I can understand that, because there's certain things. Well, I've said that since starting to produce video for MacVoices, and maybe you would agree with this, that I have a hard time divorcing myself from not an analysis, but an evaluation of, movies, video. I'm always looking at the production values. I'm always thinking about why did they choose to do this instead of that, as opposed to getting completely immersed in the story. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. I'm certain. Look, I'm not producing feature films, but it definitely changes your evaluation of things when you've done just a little bit of it and realize that there are a lot of decisions that are being made that are affecting what you're seeing and hearing.
Yeah.
Do you find that have you fallen into that trap? Since I know you do a lot of video.
I've been doing videos since I was 12. So I go in and out of phases, and sometimes I'll analyze something and then I'll just go back to being involved in the story. So I do both. And so sometimes I'll miss something that's really a production thing. And it's like, oh, I was thinking about the story at that point in time. But I'm also highly narratively driven as a person. And so maybe that makes it easier for me to get caught up in the story again.
She's been doing videos since she was 12, folks. What does that tell you about the rest of us?
Not very much.
No,
YouTube, it turns out. I try to tell people in this group of people trying to get better at TikTok, I was like, yeah, having a film degree does not help me at this point. It hurts. I promise.
Well, but when you went through film school, you were doing it old school, weren't you?
I cut film with sharp blades and taped it back together. Yes.
Yeah.
Very old school.
Yeah. That makes me feel a little better. Not a lot.
When I tell stories of my film school, I sound like I'm 30, 40 years older than I am. The school used a lot of old technology.
Yeah, but it's not a bad thing because there's so many metaphors from those days that carry over. The metaphors do. The technology doesn't, but the metaphors do. So,
and I could show my nephew. Look, there's a film strip. You can see right there. That's where the tape is. That's where an edit is. He was blown away.
Yep.
You know how they call it cutting? That's why. You did it with scissors. No, not literally scissors. It's a blade, but yeah.
Yeah, but still, you physically cut the film and then put it back together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're way off the rails here, but this
we really are.
I really appreciate the time and because what you were saying earlier just really brought that into focus because I feel like it is part of kind of what you're going to be addressing is the ability to focus and get things done versus bounce from project to project to project or steps in your list that maybe could be jumped around, but probably not the best idea. So,
and it's a good example. It's not a terribly long speaking slot. And so it really, really my goal is to leave people with ideas, with thinking and analyzing their own work differently. I hope most of the benefit they get is in their lives, going back to their lives after hearing the talk, not just in those 45 minutes.
I think if anybody's paying attention, they're going to be hard pressed to, because every time you and I have these discussions, whether it's on camera or off, I always kind of come away and go back and reevaluate some things that I'm doing or the way I do things, just because of the way that you make me think about things just a little bit differently, and that's good. I mean, that's what you do. So. So in preparation for Macstock, where can folks contact you? Where can they follow you and see what you do?
You can find my professionally website where I have my previous speaking engagements listed amongst other things I do at conquer.consulting. My YouTube is ADD Liberator, as is my TikTok.
Ooh, TikTok.
I know.
Okay.
It's like a thing. Well, the kids are doing it.
Yeah. I want to hear more about that. All right.
Oh, and I finally got on Mastodon.
Oh, you're okay. You have Mastodon presence.
Mm-hmm.
What's your instance?
The instance is pdx.social and ADD Liberator.
Great. And I'll have links in the show notes to that, and of course the lower thirds as well. So, Britt, I'm so excited to see you in person for the first time. This will be only the second time we've met in person, but it's been let's not say how many years. It's been a bunch of years. So,
it's been some time.
This is going to be great. This is going to be great. I look forward to seeing you in Macstock. At Macstock, folks, we look forward to seeing you too. We really want you to join us. We're going to have a ball. If it's not Brittany's talk, it's going to be some of the other folks we've already talked to. There are more folks coming up on the road to Macstock. So Macstock Conference and Expo.com, that's where you can see who all is speaking, what they're going to be talking about, and we're going to have a ball. We hope you'll join us. Britt, I'll see you at Macstock.
I know. I'm excited. I'll see you then.
Sounds good. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices on the road to Macstock. We'll see you then. As always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.